Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today on the Boise Beat, we're joined by a true architect of independent hip hop. From self released cassette tapes and founding his own label, to directing his own documentary and writing books, Blueprint has built a career on doing it his way. Let's get to know the mind of one of the underground's most prolific artists. Blueprint, what's happening, brother? Welcome. How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you got it. No doubt. Let's jump right into it here. I wanna crack your brain a little bit on what you've been up to all the way dating back to the late 90s when you've been involved in this scene, right? Looking
Mhm.
back on those early days with weightless recordings, let's say, what's kept you hungry all these years and kind of still lights a fire for you now?
Uh, I think what's kept me hungry is just the craft. You know, the knowing that like there's always something to learn.
Hmm.
As far as like production, that side of it to me is like it's something that I'm always chasing and trying to get better at. From listening to records, being inspired by different kind of records, different genres of music, which inspires beat making and production. Um, that's one side of it. The other side of it is just as far as like the lyrics and songwriting is just trying to be the best songwriter I can be. Every year I'm always thinking about, or every record, like how can I articulate my message more clearly, more concisely, you know? And I go back and revisit some of my older stuff and I think about where I was at that time. Um, and then I always try to think, okay, where can I go next to try to get better? So
Mm.
those things keep me hungry. Obviously, there's parts of it where it's like I never thought I would be doing it this long.
Mm.
So that part of it, being given opportunity to do this for this long, is that's very inspiring by itself as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Along those lines, you picked up some lessons along the way. And one of the things that, I think stands out as a beacon here is how you become an outspoken advocate for owning your own work and releasing music independently. What's some of the biggest lessons that you've learned about rights control and kind of carving your own lane when it comes to your own music?
Uh, Man, the biggest lesson I've learned is like this old saying goes, "He who pays the piper picks the
Mm.
tune."
Yeah, yeah.
you know,
I just reading about that the other day. No joke. Yeah.
yeah. So that works in the music industry, man, where a lot of artists they want to get signed or they want someone else to come in and write checks
Hmm.
and pay for their whole artistic career,
Hmm.
but they don't think about what happens when you let that person,
Right.
write that check. They write the check, so they're gonna pick and choose how things go, and you don't have any say or any real control. So early on in my career, I always tried to structure things to where I had a little more control. I've been, on Rhymesayers after being on my own label. And one thing that helped me was doing it myself. So when I knew how to do it all myself and we released records from other artists in Columbus, that gave me a better understanding of how things should work when I go to a label
Hmm.
and how to be an asset and how to make the best out of that situation. And so
Hmm.
that helped me tremendously about ownership. A lot of people don't think about ownership until, they leave a bigger situation and are left with nothing.
Right. Too
You
late.
know, yeah, it's
Hmm.
too late. So like in the last year, this year celebrated the 20-year anniversary of my debut record,
Hmm.
1988.
Congrats.
I was thankful that like I went into that situation with Rhymesayers knowing that at some point I was going to get that record back and it
Hmm.
would be under my ownership again. And to still be around when that happened and to still be, have a viable career, getting that record back to me, that's like something I'm very happy with in terms of just ownership of my own catalog, you
Yeah.
know. And so I try to talk to artists about, hey, make sure you know how to do things yourself. Not not that you have to enjoy it, but
Hmm.
you got to know how to do it so that when you
Yeah.
try to either hire somebody to do it or someone wants to pick you up or sign you or make you part of their situation, you're not mad when things go a certain way. You
Hmm.
you understand the mechanics of this industry, and ownership is a big part of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know exactly when this juncture took place in your life, but I understand that you also credit sobriety for giving you kind of a whole new appreciation for your time,
Yes.
and how that impacted your craft. Like how did ditching alcohol reshape your whole focus and creative process? You made that.
Yeah, I've been sober for this year marked 15 years,
Wow.
so May 15th, 2010 was when I stopped. And
Mhm.
it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made because, like you said, your perception of time and how you spend it is shaped largely by like what you do, especially like if you're drinking.
Mhm.
When you're drinking, you're trying to kill time, you
Yeah.
know. When you're sober, you're trying to preserve it.
Mhm.
And so I found that I no longer try to kill time, like, oh, I'm bored, let me start drinking or whatever, because I
Mhm.
don't have anything to do. Once
Mhm.
you get sober, you know, time, you're much more cognizant of time. I used to play shows, and when I was drinking, shows used to fly by. I'd be on
Mhm.
stage for an hour, feel like 5 minutes because I
Mhm.
wasn't really cognizant of time. Then I got sober, and all of a sudden, like an hour feels like 2 hours now. Like, man, I've
So
been
you
up there.
better enjoy it.
Yeah, 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 you better enjoy it because 'cause you're gonna be up there for a long time. You're gonna know everything that happens. You're gonna be more aware of every mistake you make, every good thing you do as well, but being more cognizant of time is very important, especially as we get older. When you're in
Mhm.
your teens and your 20s, you might be thinking, "I just want time to pass. I got plenty of time." The
Right.
older you get, the more, you recognize that you don't have forever, and the
Mhm.
time that you do have, you better use it wisely and constructively so that you don't be living with regrets. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people will drink away their best years
Mhm.
they could have been productive, and then they're older trying to get caught up. They
Right.
sacrifice too many years to the bottle. I didn't want to be one of those people, so I felt that for me to take the next step as an artist and be consistent, I couldn't be drinking anymore. So I had to cut it out.
Yeah. Wow, that's wisdom, man. I hope people are paying attention to that. That's profound, definitely, because I think so many people get caught up in the hype of what exactly it is to be able to enjoy life and thinking that it always has to be constructed in a certain way with substance, with alcohol, with whatever. But it's like, man, if you're wanting to be a master of your craft, you got to eliminate distractions. You got to eliminate things that'll pull you away from that. So I
Yeah.
think that's wisdom for sure. Speaking of the live show environment, I've heard it described as you feel like there are more narratives than just a string of songs that you pack back to back and play on a list. I want to know about how you design that journey from start to finish. How do you design it for audiences, I should say, and then also, of course, do you have anything in store specifically for the Boise stop that you're going to be doing on this upcoming tour?
Yeah. I've always looked at shows as like it's not just songs, because
Hmm.
it is a story. It's a story that we want to have look almost like three-act structure in story writing where you have a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And in the end, you clearly, if you want everybody to feel good when they leave, you then means that you need to have songs in that place that elicit those feelings. You know, in the middle, you might have all this tension, and that's when conflict, appears in the three-act structure. And the first is just the beginning. Who we are, what we're
Hmm.
about, what we believe, the character introduction. And so I always have looked at sets in the same way as like a,
Hmm.
a three-act structure story format. And so I try to apply that to everything I do on stage, to where by the end of it, by the last 15 minutes, everybody is being taken on a roller coaster ride. It's just
Yeah.
high. We reach the peak, and so that they can leave there feeling like, wow, I'm inspired.
Mm.
I'm ready to go on and do more. Or because a lot of my music is inspirational. I try to write
Mhm.
songs that are uplifting, and I try to make sure my set is constructed so that those people who may need to be inspired and decide to come to the show leave with that. You know, I'm also influenced heavily in terms of my sets by DJing, because
Mhm.
I was a DJ before I was a rapper. In
Mm.
college, I used to DJ and parties, and I had a mix show and all of that. And I kind of realized doing parties that like you better be peaking at the right time,
Mm.
or else people gonna leave the dance floor and be pissed off, be mad at
Right.
you.
Right.
So that kind of helped me learn before I even started putting together my sets, like the movement of of a set, how you can use music to tell a story to get people into it more and more as it goes along, And so
Mhm.
I always was into that, bringing that into my sets as I started putting together my sets, being my DJ. So because I used to DJ, I know exactly what I'm looking for from him. And I
Yeah.
can explain to him the concepts. Okay, here we want to use this kind of transition. Here we don't want to just start stop. Here we want to blend these
Mhm.
things together. We don't want people to lose focus here. We want to speed it up here. We want to cut to you here, and we try to put together that kind of experience. Man, last time I think I played Boise maybe in 2018. I think I might have played it,
Mhm.
or 2016. And Boise's always been really dope. Boise was one of those places I remember I went back in the day, and it was one of the first places they were like really, really up on my 1988 record,
Mhm.
and the guys that I would play with and people in the crowd, they were like, yo, we want to hear that 88 shit. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So well, I know that every time I play Boise, I've done a lot more 1988 material because that
Mhm.
record is it's just a record. They want to hear a lot off that. So it will probably be the same thing this time around, where they will probably get more of that than other people because I know that that's typically a record that really resonates with them.
Nice, nice. That's good to look forward to. As alluded to, DJing to being on stage in a different capacity. You're not a one trick pony, obviously, right? This other side of you, of blogging, that also led to writing several books I kind of want to get into, and how like you moving into storytelling, um, how that kind of evolved from where you were, and if that poses like a different challenge when you're writing prose versus lyrics. Like, unpack that for me.
Yeah. Um, I got into blogging really early. This was during the hip hop blogging era when the blogs were killing everything. And
Mm.
people thought that that was just going to be like the next thing. And it was more, I saw an opportunity to tell stories because I was like, we had social media a little bit. Then everyone had websites, but there
Mm-hmm.
was no real way for artists to truly, truly bridge the gap between them and their fans outside of their songs. And then I would see people, not even in the hip hop space. I was subscribing to a number of blogs, and I always thought to myself, like, man, I should do that. Like, why can't we do that as artists? Like
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
somewhere where we write and have people come there to watch us writing. And so, right around I think we're 2006, 2005 or so, I started really blogging heavily. 2006, 2007, and I would write 2 to 3 a week, sometimes 3 or 4 a week on my blog, and it really changed how I viewed myself because that was when I started to change the definition myself from, I'm a rapper to I'm a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt at that point that being a writer really encompassed everything and it
Mm.
allowed me to create more freely. Whereas if you consider yourself just a rapper, then you just write rhymes. That's
Yeah.
it. Whereas if you consider yourself a writer, then that means that you use every medium
Mm.
possible to tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
So once I was able to see myself as a writer through blogging, it made me change how I view my music. It made me
Yeah.
quick to adapt to visual storytelling. So
Mm-hmm.
then I picked up the camera, and by the time I picked up the camera in 2010, I had saw myself as a writer. So I was like, oh, the camera is just another tool for me to tell stories. I'm
Yeah.
not a videographer. I'm a storyteller now.
Yeah.
And so I'm visually telling stories, which is an extension of what I learned from blogging, that it doesn't have to be just rhymes, you
Yeah.
know. Um, even things down to email newsletters that I send out to people on my email list. They're like stories typically.
Mm.
If I write it, it's going to be at least 1,000 to 1,500 words. It's not for everybody who just wants to jump in and jump out, but
Mm-hmm.
it's going to really resonate as something that really explains everything and makes them really understand what's going on. And so I try to look at my career now as like, you know, I'm a writer, man. And I used to be just a rapper. I used to see myself that maybe I've always been a writer, but
Sure.
rap was maybe the first medium that really allowed me to see that. And then blogging really hit it home. And
Mm.
so then blogging also taught me about just like e-commerce and how writing blogs and people reading on your site make them want to buy your stuff. I was like,
Right.
oh, so if I just blog every day or a couple times a week, people go to my site. If you go to my site, then they want to buy stuff. all right, I get it. And then
Mhm.
eventually the blogging, I started taking the blogs and I wrote like a book, a compilation of all my best, most popular blogs. It was called Word is Blog Volume 1. And then that did really well. I would sell those at shows and people just loved it, especially since there were stories in there about me getting sober. All my blogs
Mhm.
about getting sober were in there. And there was some funny writing in there too. But then that kind of made me see, oh, you can write books. So at that point, I was like, I'm going to sit down and actually write a book, you
Yeah.
know, which was my Adventures in Countercultures book, The Making of Adventures in Counterculture. And then after that, I wrote three more. I wrote a What a Night, a book about the worst shows of my career, which is a funny book. And then there's like, what's the other one? Um, oh, then I wrote a one for artists because we had started a podcast at that point, and so I wrote book called The Social Media Cheat Code, which is
Mm.
just for artists at the beginning of their journey,
Yeah.
how to adapt to social media if they hate social media. And
Yeah.
then my latest one was the 10 traits of successful hip hop artists, and that's
Nice.
just me going through like all these artists that I admire and trying to
Mhm.
write a book that explained how their success wasn't just due to talent, it was due to these traits that they had inside of them. Because
Mm.
a lot of times artists will get discouraged and they'll think that, I'm just not talented enough. That's why I haven't been successful. And it
Yeah.
really could just be something very simple like, nah, you're talented enough. You're just lazy.
Yeah.
Or
Call for what it is, huh?
yeah, 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 you're just lazy, or like you have a hard time spending dedicated time. Like you don't like being alone.
Mhm.
And when it comes to music or any of these art crafts, like you have to spend some time alone to get good. And
Absolutely.
so the book is about those things that I've seen in other artists. So I write their stories and tell their stories and explain it. And that was the last book I wrote.
Yeah. Wow, it seems like a lot of, I mean, you mentioned it right off the gate initially where you said a lot of the stuff that you create is inspirational in a sense, right? And so it
Yeah.
seems like you are inspired by everything around you and it inspires you to create to inspire the people, which I think is also kind of a pivotal, a pillar, you could say, of Super Duty Tough Work as well,
Yes.
which is a resource, right, to
Hmm.
help artists navigate the creativity space in business.
Yeah.
Elaborate for me on that specific project because I think you're tapping into like every medium you could possibly think of, from written to stage, live performances to video, and now podcasting. Talk to me about that project.
Yeah. The podcast kind of came from one realizing that like there was a point where blogging kind of was going downhill. People just kind of their attention span for blogging just wasn't there.
Hmm.
But then at the same time, it was because people's attention span was on podcasts. And as podcasts started to become more popular, I was just a big fan of podcasts. I had several that I would listen to all the time. Especially if we were touring or on the road, I would just listen to those nonstop, while I'm driving. And eventually, a lot of people were like, "Print, you should get a podcast. You should get a podcast. You should get a podcast." And I was like, I don't want to make a hip hop podcast that's like based on gossip about other artists or
Hmm.
that's based on, how the hip hop news cycle is. It's just like
Right.
this person had beef with that person. This
Yeah.
person broke up with that person. This person is,
Hmm.
it's always conflict.
Yeah.
And I didn't also want to start a podcast where it was about me, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, well, I'm just telling you random stories of stuff because that can get exhausting too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so eventually I kind of settled on doing a podcast that was really what I was more inspired by, which was like sharing my experiences as an independent artist to hopefully inspire and teach other independent artists.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I've been motivated to do much more than just talk about myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like the music for me is how I talk about myself,
Mm.
and that's always been enough. I never felt like I got to get on a podcast and talk every week about me, 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 me.
Yeah.
So doing a podcast from the angle of these guys are sharing experiences in the industry to hopefully inspire you or to teach you the lessons that they learned from the mistakes they made. That's really appealing to me
Mm-hmm.
because in doing that, we attract a whole different fan base than we do with our music. And the Super Duty Tough Work podcast is just meant to inspire, and the fans we have from that podcast are just, it's like there's people who know about me from music, but then there's people who don't know nothing about my music and just listen to the podcast because
Mhm.
it inspires them.
Yeah.
Like they'll throw the podcast on. Like if they're a visual artist, they tell me how they throw it on while they're painting. If they're making
Mhm.
beats, they'll throw it on while they're making beats, listening to records. And it's just like it gives them a sense of community while they're making stuff because they get
Yeah.
to listen to us talk about these concepts and drop jewels on them. And there's very little mentoring in the music industry. You know, when I was coming up, nobody wanted to help us. Everything
Mhm.
was very secretive. Like, nah, I can't
Mhm.
teach you. I got records. No, I can't teach you how to sample. No, I won't tell you which drum machine I got.
Mhm.
Guys is real secretive,
Yeah.
dudes will teach you nothing, and then they would look at you like if you wanted to come over and learn from them, they looked at you like you were trying to steal their style or something. Whereas
Right.
now we're in a wide open era. Everything's on YouTube. Everybody is willing to share, and I love that. I love
Yeah.
that because I know what it's like to be kind of kept on the outskirts because nobody wanted to share their knowledge or help. So we want Super Duty Tough Work to be able to help and inspire artists, and that's just our mission to help inspire artists. And every year, how we do it kind of evolves, but that's the mission, and it's extremely fulfilling to do it.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, man. Inspiring to hear that too. I think we should be continually looking for opportunities to pay it forward to another generation and to other people, and eliminate the mentality that everything's scarce and there's not enough to go around for everybody, or people have to be a gatekeeper for other reasons, which is typically tied to insecurity, I think.
Yeah.
But it's inspiring to hear you guys doing this.
No, thank you.
Columbus. Columbus holds a special place in your heart, I understand.
Absolutely.
Uh, Yeah, let me hear about, like, what is that, or why is that the case, and how has Columbus shaped you, as a person, as an artist, etc.
Columbus to me, at least from everything that I've seen, I lived in Cincinnati when my music career kind of started.
Hmm.
I grew up in Columbus, but I wasn't really part of the music scene here. And then went to college in a small town called Springfield, about an hour away. A very small town. And so I started doing music then, learning how to DJ. I met my crew there, and we started freestyling and all that stuff. But after college, I didn't move back to Columbus. So my family's from here in Columbus. I moved to Cincinnati because I was working. I took a job down there. And when we first started getting involved in the scene, like Cincinnati was very tough,
Mm.
very tough. It was like one of those places where you can you can do everything right, and it just doesn't resonate with people.
Mm.
People never champion you. And so I had a theory in like 2000. So like even in 2002 to 2004, when Soul Position was popping and Rhymesayers was just coming up and Weightless and all, we were really making a name for ourselves. I lived in Cincinnati, but Cincinnati was still really tough, very
Mm.
tough market. No, we never were champion there like I felt we should have been. So then around 2004, I said, man, I'll move back to Columbus. There's no reason for me to be here if this scene ain't cracking. And let's just
Mhm.
try this in Columbus. The rest of my guys are there. We'll see what happens. When we went to Columbus and we started doing the exact same things we were doing in Cincinnati, everything popped.
Wow.
We didn't change. So all of a sudden, the record stores would carry our records and help us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All of a
Wow.
sudden, venues would book our shows. They started answering emails.
Uh-huh.
All of a sudden, the local college radio and things like that would play the records, would have us on to interview us. The local, the weekly music entertainment papers would write about us, um, and the people will come out. We're excited about us. We're championing us. Like, yo, these are our people.
Wow.
This is Columbus hip hop. Went from Cincinnati playing in front of 30 to 50 people to Columbus playing in front of hundreds of people,
Mm.
and within a year, and it would just kind of show me that sometimes like you can be doing the right thing, but sometimes you're just in the wrong place,
Right.
and you got to
Mhm.
be someplace where like culturally they want to cheer for their people. And there's certain cities that are like that. Watching Rhymesayers come up in Minneapolis, very much like that. They root for their own.
Mhm.
Columbus has that same thing where we just want to see our people win. We're not here like hating on nobody else, but when someone from Columbus has got it, we
Hmm.
ride with them. We love it,
Yeah.
because there's not been a lot to come out of here. Even though it's a pretty big city, there's just not a lot of people who've made it nationally out of Columbus. And
Hmm.
so it's always been very competitive here in Columbus, but Columbus is one of the more positive places to be an artist that I've ever been to. And it's why I've never felt the need to move.
Yeah.
Once I moved back here, I was like, I don't think I should move because it's like I'm comfortable here. Cost of living is right there where I need it to be. Um, People care about artists here. I don't feel like there's the gatekeeping or just like the lack of excitement. Because
Yeah.
I don't want to, talk bad about Cincy. I still got a lot of good friends there, but I just didn't feel the level of support for artists who are from there that I've seen in Columbus. And even though I don't live there anymore, I haven't really seen that for any artist since I've left there.
Mhm.
I check back and see, okay, well, maybe it was just us. Maybe
Yeah.
no one just was rocking with us. And
Yeah.
then looking like that. Actually, they still don't have anybody that they're riding with like that. So
Mhm.
it's just an environment that wasn't good. So Columbus was the complete opposite and very supportive. A lot of artists here, really strong camaraderie amongst the artists and everyone involved. And I think that's what helps make it go here.
Yeah. Uh, they won your heart, and so you're still
Yeah,
here.
exactly, exactly. I can't just dip like that, man. For some, nah, man.
Mhm.
Columbus,
Well, with all these things that we've just unpacked here, I mean, you juggle roles, or you've juggled roles, I should say, as rapper, producer, author, filmmaker,
hmm
label owner. Earlier, you talked about how some people are just lazy. You said, they don't have the discipline, they don't have
hmm
the stamina to do what they need to do, and the perseverance to do it. Like, how do you direct where you put your focus and your energy without burnout, or veering off a track that you shouldn't go, and all of a sudden you find yourself miles away from the direction you should be going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do that sometimes to my detriment.
We're like real talk here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have had periods in my career where I've just kind of decided to go on a tangent and follow something. Ultimately, then had to kind of snap back to reality. Like this is cool, but this is not what you need to be spending all this time on. You know.
Hmm.
So I do, and that's just the artist in me. I think the
Hmm.
artist, artists are always looking for inspiration anywhere they can find it. And
Yeah.
sometimes that inspiration comes from outside of their true discipline or what people know them for. So I've had periods like that. But what I've had to really realize in the last few years, it really is like I had this conversation with a friend of mine recently this weekend, and I was talking about the last 2 years of my career where I felt like I've really been kind of getting things together and staying on point, and things have been working out better. And I told him the only difference between now and some other years was that this year and last since 2024, I've told myself I had to trick myself into doing the right thing by telling myself, what would Blueprint's manager want him to do? I don't have a manager, but I
Yeah.
have to tell myself, if you had a
Mhm.
manager, what would they tell you to do today?
Yeah.
What would they say is the top priority? What would they say you need to do so that you actually make some money? And
Yeah.
stop going on these artistic tangents that don't
Uh-huh.
make you any money. And so the last year and a half I've been doing that, it's been great. But I have to sometimes trick myself because I'm an artist too. And
Sure.
I'll be doing some stuff that sounds good, feels good to me, but really doesn't lead to my financial success.
Yeah. This is the second time you've mentioned something that reminds me of a book. This isn't a book plug by any means, but
Yeah.
no joke. I've been reading this book. It's called "Your Future Self Now"
Yeah.
by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, I think it is, and it speaks to these kind of concepts. Of like, who do you envision yourself to be, and if that future self were to look at you
hmm
now, like, what would they tell you? Like, how would that change the way that you do things in the now? So maybe you should read
Yeah.
that book too. I think it's
Yeah.
inspiring for me. It has been.
Yeah. There's a lecture. I don't know if you've seen it online. There's a lecture by Karis One. I
Mm-mm.
think it's called like The Future You or something like that. It's very similar
Okay.
to that book.
Mm,
It's been out there for about 10 years. I watch it like every year or two. And he talks about
really?
the same concept. He talks about how you should be operating in the future version of yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
because the future, because that's who's going to protect,
Yep.
you then. So like
Uh-huh.
you're making decisions now that affect the 10-year and the future version of you right now.
Right.
And if you look at it that way, you realize like, man, I don't want to be mad at myself in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
He's gonna be mad at this version of me for not doing what he needed to do. And so
Right.
yeah, that viewpoint has always inspired me because like it's very easy to get caught up and not think long term. And
Mm-hmm.
then you look back with all this deep regret, like, why didn't I do that? Why did
Mm-hmm.
I had an opportunity for this? And then you don't want to do that, man. You want to live a life that's fulfilling and but also without regret.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's for real. Somebody listening to this right now is like, this sounds like Inception, dream within a dream within a dream.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's real wisdom for sure. Give us the low if you could on the Vessel tour, right? And kind of the concept, what inspired this. I mean, you're working with DJ Detox, right?
Yep.
Um, let's hear all about that.
Yeah, the Vessel tour starts, I mean, officially starts this Wednesday, August 13th in Chicago. Although we did play 2 shows this weekend. We played a album release show in Columbus here, and on Saturday we played a show Friday in Dayton, Ohio, which is like an hour outside of Columbus. And the tour will go August 13th through I think October 17th. And so it's a pretty long tour. It's going to be right around 50 shows, 50 cities, maybe a little more. Um, it's going to just be me and Detox. And when we show up in certain cities, there'll be local support there. Um, and it's just going to be me going and playing, a lot of the new material as well as, the stuff that people know me for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one of those artists that likes to get out there on tour and not play the old stuff and piss people off and just say, nah, the new stuff, you got to hear all this. Artists they do this sometimes, or
Uh-huh.
like they force the new stuff down your throat. But so far, what I've been seeing for this new record is it's giving me the ability to play both really well because it fits where I am. So, the shows I had this weekend, really good. We did an outdoor free show in Dayton, Ohio, in this place called the Levitt. It's like a big free outdoor kind of a park venue right in the middle of downtown Dayton. Every type of person was there. By the end of my set, there were groups of like 5, 7-year-old kids in the front,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
dancing and rocking out. There's people who are 60, 70-year-old out there
Uh-huh.
dancing. There's people pulling up in lawn chairs. There's the hip hop heads that I know from the Dayton scene already. They're
Uh-huh.
there as well. It's like everybody is there, and they booked me there because my music has the ability to kind of touch those people.
Uh-huh.
It's not so rap, 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 or
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean, that it can't touch those people. I have songs like Perspective, Persevere, things like that that really, really um move people, and anybody can understand and appreciate. And a new record has a lot of that. So that's really what I wanted to be on this tour. I wanted to be a tour where people come see the show and they leave there super inspired. They leave there like, okay, whether I'm an artist, whether I'm a professional, whatever I do, this has inspired me to kind of keep it going, and
Yeah.
that's what I want the tour to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. So anybody listening to this that's going to be in the Treasure Valley area, this is going to be hitting your way August 27th over at the Neurolux. If you're familiar with the spot, super cool spot, intimate setting. It's one of those places that you're definitely going to get the experience, or maybe a greater experience than what you have thought. Just that whole environment as a whole, I really love it for shows specifically. Some local support that's coming out for you as well.
Yeah.
My boy, the Mighty Delta One. Shout out to you,
Mhm.
brother, if you're hearing this. And yeah, super looking forward to this, man. Stoked to have you on deck, and thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate you, bro.
Thanks for having me, man.
You got it.